So our topic today is connective tissue, and I have subtitled this connective tissue title with connective tissue is both our web of structure. As we will see, it's a very extensive system of fibers and structures that hold all of our organs and tissues and skeleton and muscles all together. It's the great connector. It connects everything to everything. And it is also what I'm calling our web of chi, because as we'll see as slides unfold, it's not only a fibrous structural tissue, but it is an electromagnetic medium that both receives fields from outside of it, like an antenna, and creates our own body field of electromagnetic energy that we see in auras, that we see in scans of our electromagnetic field. So it is both our structure and our antenna and our broadcast medium of a very important part of our chi energy, the electromagnetic energy that flows through this amazing tissue. So I want to remember something we spoke about last week when we were looking at the gamma motor system, and I wanted to point out that when we look at our anatomy books, we encounter a myth that is directly involved in really seeing and realizing and acknowledging and having knowledge about the crucial importance and the ubiquity of this connective tissue system all through our body. I mentioned that almost all the connective tissue in our anatomy books has been eliminated from the tidy pictures. And this extensive and intermeshed webbing isn't seen. And this gives us a very false impression of the movement transfer happening at origins and insertions, and gives us a kind of robotic picture of muscles simply through their tendons connecting to bones. All the muscles are nicely shown here, but in order to see all this nice red contrast and isolated muscles, all of the connective tissue webbing has been eliminated from that textbook picture. So when we look, for instance, at I find this a very valuable book of muscles in action in our asanas. And once again, you can see even in this guide for yoga illustrations of the muscles in action in our asanas, we see which muscles are shortening, we see which muscles are lengthening, but again, we lose in the illustration all of this interconnective tissue meshing that is not just tying origins and insertions together, but is tying together all structures that are next to each other, extending out into the structures that's connected to the next and the next and the next, and so on throughout our system. So I want to remind us again that we have one muscle divided into many vectors by our connective tissue system, and that one muscle united together into a system by one connective tissue system is organized by one integrated nervous system. So all of the separation, all the anatomical dissection, all the sense of one tissue and then another tissue and another tissue just has to be erased from our conceptual system. That's not the way we're put together. That's not the way we work. And that's not the anatomy and kinesiology that we are addressing when we do our exercise, when we move about in our daily lives, and when we're in the practice and process of getting woke through the ancient system of enlightenment and awareness and intelligence that our yoga practice is ultimately designed to lead us ever more towards. So this connective tissue system is a global system in our body. It is everywhere. The first thing I want to look at is where this web of chi and web of structure comes from, both in evolutionary development and in our own bodies. And we're going to take a look at the basic cells that generate this, the molecules that make up this fibrous matrix of tissue. And we're going to look at the basic molecular structures and properties of the webbing that the cells producing connective tissue are spitting out into our body. I feel this is very important information to have in our minds and images to have in our minds when we are imagining how we're put together and when we're confronting all these integrated systems, trying to open ourselves up to both lengthening and relaxation and gathering strength and everything that we're trying to develop in the structure of the asanas and our yoga practices. So here is the cell that is the generator of the connective tissue matrix. This is a fibroblast. Fibroblast because blast means produce, and fibro meaning it produces the fibers that are holding us together. Saraswati, did I see your mouth moving? Are you trying to say something? Hello, Saraswati? Oh, I'm not hearing you. Oh dear, Saraswati. Yes. Hello? Oh, you're not picking up your phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry. Yep.
Oh, there you are. Oh, what? I don't know what happened to your voice. I can see you talking. Oh my God. Ah! We are in the chaos of the streets. All right. So just to recap what I said a moment ago, this is the cell that produces the fibrous matrix of the connective tissue that holds us together. When this cell first appeared in the process of the long chain of evolutionary developments, the arrival of this cell, the fibroblast, was a decisive development in evolution. The emergence of the fibroblast was absolutely critical in the capacity to form multicellular life forms. And this same cell is a very early differentiated cell in our embryonic development. Saraswati, I've lost you as a picture. There you are. And say something so I can see or hear you sound. No, you're muted for me.
I'm
There you
here.
are.
I'm just
Okay.
getting
Oh my
someone
God. All right.
I'm getting someone else in.
Okay. All right. So the arrival of this cell in the evolutionary chain of developments was absolutely necessary for any multicellular life form to be assembled and function. And it was an early differentiated cell in our own embryonic development. So this is a dehydrated preparation, but this shows us the fibers that have been produced by the fibroblasts in evolutionary development in our own bodies. And we can see how it forms a fibrous mesh that is connecting individual cells into a collective. Before this cell, fibroblast, and its fibrous structure creation showed up, everything was just single cells floating around in this aqueous medium in the sea. And algae were just floating with the currents. Amoebas showed up later and with their locomotor systems began to be able to move themselves about, but they were all constrained to their single cellular existence. When the fibroblasts showed up and started spinning out this fiber structure that we're going to see in more detail, this was the event that allowed cells to congregate and to hold themselves together